Hello humans! Today I want to talk about this guy right here. This is probably the most disappointing knife I've ever bought in my life. Um, I've had it for over a year now. I picked it up at a hardware store after hearing good things, especially from family members that I have over in Europe. I have family in Denmark in that area, and they were highly recommending checking out an hultafors knife. I've had Moras. They knew I liked Moras. I've had them ship me Moras before. So having something that was considered to be fairly similar, but a little bit cheaper and roughly the same quality definitely intrigued me. This design definitely intrigued me. I think that the handle is really nice. It was behind a display cabinet, so it was one of those situations where like they have a show model and then they have other ones in little containers behind. So I checked out the show model, and then I got one of the ones in the little container, and this ended up being a very, very disappointing knife purchase for me. So before I get super into this, this is the hultafors outdoor knife OK4. It has a 4-inch blade of SK5, which is a Japanese steel. They make a big deal about it being a Japanese steel. It is a rough equivalent to 1080 simple carbon. Again, like I said, rough, there is more to it than simple carbon, but that is what it is considered to be very, very similar to. And they advertise it as being hardened between 58 and 60 HRC, which is actually pretty good, especially on these simpler steels. That works fine. I'm going to start off by what I really, really like about this knife and the sheath system, and then I'm going to get into why I found this to be an extremely disappointing knife. So first thing first that I really, really liked is actually the sheath. This is a really, really good hard plastic sheath, because, so as you can see, it comes with this nylon belt loop and this little attachment. You can fit like pens or whatever in here. I don't know why it's worth having a pen on your gardening knife, but if that's your thing, you can absolutely do it. There's other small tools that you can fit in there that work just fine. Really, really nice ramp, actually, for getting it out of your pocket. Like that thumb ramp is actually really, of course, I'm having a hard time with it right now, but the thumb ramp's actually really, really usable, and retention is really good. It has a drainage hole near the bottom. It's actually not at the bottom. There's a very, very small amount of water that can ball up at the bottom, which isn't my favorite thing, but it is near the bottom, and it does keep the blade out of water if there's water inside of this, which is good. One of the really, really cool things about this is actually, so the retention loop locks in place with this little tab. Like it actually can't slide out unless you pop this open. And then you can snap it, if you've got something thin enough to snap it onto, you can snap it onto something directly, or if it's going in a toolbox or something like that and you just want it getting hooked on things less, you can just pull it off, run your knife exactly like this, and it works great. So it's a really, really nice sheath. I actually do really appreciate the sheath. It's very cool seeing, even if it's not like the most innovative thing in the world. Like I know there are other companies that do similar things. I really appreciate it. I think it's super cool. The knife itself, it has rubberized covering over the hard plastic handle and a very, very slight swelling in the center, making this a very, very comfortable handle to actually hold. The finger guard right here is really good. It does prevent you from getting right behind the blade if that is something that you care about, but you still can get really and truly quite close. And you just have so much control with the way that it's set up. It also has slanted sides to the front of this finger guard, which means that it works quite well in a pinch grip if that is something that is important to you. Texturing's good. Like it, with gloves, without gloves, whatever, it fits in the hand nicely. It is comfortable to use. Now into the stuff that sucks about this. All right, start off with coating, but not coating everywhere. Kind of annoying. If you're going to go through the effort of coating a carbon steel, which fair enough, for an outdoors knife, I can understand. I personally don't prefer it, but I can definitely see the appeal to it. But then just coat everything. Like if you get moisture on this, the logo and the depth marker right here, this is a depth marker. If you're using this out in a garden, you can use it to help you plant seeds, which again, for an outdoor knife, I can definitely see the value of. But like that's the part that's going to rust, and that's the part that you're sticking in the moist dirt. Dahoy. Stupid. Yeah. So that's kind of my first thing that was like, okay, I foresee issues. It came relatively sharp. I mean, not like hair popping or anything like that, but it came sharp enough out of the box. The grind is not great, especially out here near the tip. It's actually really obvious from the back. You can actually see just how far off that grind is. Which, I mean, it sucks, but... Well, I'll get into pricing in just a minute. But it does suck to have a grind that's off by that much. And if you want to reprofile it so that the grind matches, you end up having to take material... Because it is a fairly true Scandi grind, you end up having to take all of the coating off of the entirety of the edge portion. Which is just kind of annoying. As soon as you sharpen this, your depth gauge is wrong, which is super duper fun. And I mean, I know there's not really another way of doing that, but come on. Like, obviously, for most people, like, you're not going to be sharpening away that much material, especially not quickly. But this is an outdoor knife. It is going to see a fairly large amount of use. And if you want to compare it to their direct competition, the Morganave, you're going to be resharpening it relatively often. Like, this is something that is going to get used, and you might end up replacing the tip. You might end up doing this, that, and the other thing. Depth gauge was, in my opinion, a bit of a choice. It's not the worst thing in the world, and if you are just using this for gardening, cutting through soft plants, stuff like that, you might not need to resharpen it very often, but you have to fully reprofile this to get that grind wonkiness out, right? Which is just a very, very frustrating QC issue. However, it pales in comparison to what I consider to be the biggest issue with this knife, and the reason why I am genuinely scared to use it. And that is back here on the spine. So out here near the tip, it's catching the light a little bit. There we go. There's this in the actual steel. Now, this is most likely a milling fault. The mill that made the steel, this was likely from the edge of a piece of steel that they got. It's a milling. When the mill made the steel, there was just a little bit not enough material. When it got rolled out, you end up with this little bit of wonkiness. Or possibly there was a delamination inside of a bit of steel, and this knife right here was cut out from just the edge of it. It doesn't seem to be a very deep delamination, but I can't tell with the coating on it and that kind of a thing. But it really, really scares me because it tells me that there is something wrong with this billet. And especially on an outdoor or a hard use knife, that's really scary to me because I do not know what is wrong with this steel. Right? Like, this is... It might not seem like a lot because it is a fairly shallow indentation, but you can see the entire rest of the knife is ground. This area isn't, which means that this was at one point deeper than it currently is, and I don't know if there's more problems inside of the blade that are like this, or in other bits of the same billet. I work in manufacturing. I'm a welder. I work in a manufacturing shop. If we see a fault in a bit of steel, that entire heat order gets checked, x-rayed, right? Like, and we're not even working in anything super, well, some stuff we work is fairly high precision, but that's a standard across everything. Not everything we make is a high precision item. We are not, like, we have tolerances sometimes that are in or out half an inch, like, genuinely, right? And that's considered an acceptable tolerance for some of our products. Not all of our products. A lot of our products have tolerances within like a 16th or a 32nd, but if one of the products that has a tolerance of half an inch has a fault like that, the entire heat order of that material gets checked. This scares me. This scares me for this knife. This scares me for other knives in the product line. I do not know if this is just the edge piece and how the steel got rolled out. It just didn't heat super evenly, or there was a hard patch in it. Like, I know nothing about how this steel was made. That is the responsibility of the company that is making these knives. That should never happen. You should never... The only possible exception to this is in a hand-forged knife, if you have hammer marks. This isn't hand-forged. This is done through stock material. and we don't know what's wrong with this. Best case scenario, and I don't believe this is what is happening. They're probably either using a stamp or a laser, but best case scenario, they're using a milling machine and the milling tool nicked it due to bad code or the machine busting or getting bent or whatever. That's the best case scenario, because in that case, this is just a very, very small problem on this one particular blade. Worst case scenario, there's a patch of delaminated shit in the middle of this, and as soon as I strike into a block of wood or something like that, this will shatter and cut me to pieces. Not to pieces, obviously, but like I could genuinely nick my hands or something like that. That sucks. That's scary. That's incredibly frustrating. And because I know nothing about this knife, this company, anything like that, it's bad. Okay. Now that I've gotten over why I consider this knife to be unusable, I am going to get a little bit into hultafors and what they do, kind of a dealio, in terms of knives. They make other products. They make lots of other products, but in terms specifically of knives, they're kind of like a competitor to Mora Kniv. Mora, made in Sweden. I believe these are also made in Sweden. Hultafors? Switzerland, maybe? No, not Switzerland. I think they are also Swedish. Hultafors is a different company. That I know is Swedish. I'm sorry. The name sounds Swedish. I'm pretty sure it's from Sweden. If I'm wrong, there's a thing that's showing up on the page. So they are compared to Moras. In Europe, especially, they are cheaper than Mora Knivs are. So you're paying like 80% of the price for 85% of the quality control, which is fine. Like you can I understand why people would find that appealing. Here in Canada, this is actually more expensive than this by like a ways. So this obviously isn't a one-to-one comparison. This is the stainless steel version of the Mora Kniv Companion. But I paid right around $40 for the hultafors. And this is a knife that if you go deal hunting and stuff like that, you can get for under $20 without too much difficulty, even in Canada. That's Canadian prices. Without deal hunting, stuff like that, it's going to be closer to 30. But again, this is cheaper than this in Canada, where I am. So that's scary. You pay more, you get a less high quality item. Yeah, the sheath is nice. The handle's really nice. I find the handle really, really comfortable, but you're not getting anything you don't get out of Mora Kniv. You're not getting a better steel. You're getting roughly an equivalent steel. Honestly, I can never justify one of these unless you hold the exact one that you are thinking of getting in your hands, do a complete quality control check on all of the steel. This scares me too much to ever be able to recommend, and that sucks because I know that the way that they're driving down the prices, especially in Europe, is by skimping a little bit on the quality control and having a little bit looser tolerances, right? That makes sense. It's how you get something cheaper. Mora Knivs are cheap because they produce such a massive amount of them that the requirement of profit per unit is significantly lower. It's the same reason why they're cheaper in Canada, because they import them in such large amounts that the shipping cost on each unit is reduced, right? I don't know if hultafors just isn't making enough knives to be able to do this at the same quality level, or if they have a higher profit margin, or if their costs are higher, or what the deal is. This makes me sad. I really wanted to like this knife. I liked the model they had in the store. I knew that the grind was that one there had a little bit of a different wonky grind, but I knew the grind was going to be a little bit wonky. But the fact that there's an actual flaw with the steel of the blade scares the shit out of me. And as far as I'm concerned, this is unusable as an outdoor knife. Yeah, that sucks. It's a hit piece. I don't like doing that kind of thing, and there's a reason why I didn't talk about this when I first got the knife. I filmed an unboxing. I've lost it in the phone switch since then, but like I was excited about this initially, and then I found that, and I was like, I can't, in good conscience, use, promote, do anything like that. So unless you've handled one and checked out the steel and done your own quality control check on it, do not get a hultafors. Yeah, it sucks. I liked it. I like the design, but between a little bit of blade grind wonkiness, which I can understand, and a very, very potentially very, very scary steel fault, as far as I'm concerned, it's unusable. Stay safe. and have fun out there. Peace.